Hi, welcome to another episode of Wally Hill's Garage. We'll be changing the transmission fluid in our vehicle today. It's got you kind of dirty and involves quite a lot of pieces. But stay tuned, it'll be really interesting. In our BMW 335xi, the really interesting thing is the drain plug for the transmission fluid is behind the front drive shaft, which you're going to have to remove. So it's going to be quite a bit of work. Drivers. These are the smaller screws. This is the mid-impact, which is relatively half the weight. And this one is the monster impact, which will really rip the heads off bolts. So that's what I will be using. And we have the quick jack here and our car. So let's get to it. So I actually have a quick jack at my house. This is my 335xi. My Tesla's sitting outside there, and that is the charger for the Tesla. But anyway, I can use this to lift the car up. I'm going to change the transmission oil in this vehicle. Here's a shot underneath the car. We just removed the cover plate here. And as you can see, this is the transmission pan. It's the drain plug. But the drain hole is behind, this is the front drive shaft right here. And the hole is up in there behind this. So I have to remove this drive shaft in order to make this work. So you fill the oil for the transmission up behind this drive shaft. So it has to come out. And this is the drain plug for the of the transmission pan. So we have to remove this bracket, which is the transfer case for the 335xi, and this bracket that holds the exhaust pipes in, and then also this heat shield over here. And then we can remove all these bolts. I don't know if you can see them, but you see these bolts that surround the transmission pan. So that's what we have to take out, and should be quite a challenge. But after that, we will fire up INPA and be able to read the temperature of the transmission and be able to pump in the oil at 40 Celsius until we get it full. So it's a bit of an involved job, but it should be quite fun. And if you're wondering, this is how you remove your drive shaft. You jam a screwdriver into it so it doesn't turn, and you turn this to break the 4 bolts. I wouldn't impact these because they're aluminum, and I'm replacing them because you can only use them once. They're torqued to 20 Newton meters and then a quarter turn after to stretch the aluminum, so you can't reuse them. So yeah, so I have to remove this to get to the transmission drain plug. Not this one, but the one the fill is behind the drive shaft here. That's the transfer case in the BMW 335xi. So yeah, and that's the back of the car. We're actually flipped over right now. I don't know if you can see it, but right there is the drive shaft we just took out. We left the connector to the front of the car, but not to the transfer case. So now we can have access to that hole that we had to remove. So if we look now around to the side, if you can see, now you can get in there and you can see the fill hole, which is right, I think, I don't know if you can see it. So right now, this is the drive shaft. It's been disconnected. And there's the transfer case in the back of the vehicle. We're underneath the car again. But now if you look up here, you can see that drain hole. That was blocked completely by this drive shaft. You have to remove the drive shaft. But if you do, these are 4 aluminum bolts. They're 20 Newton meters and then a quarter turn to stretch. So you have to buy new ones. They're roughly $1.66 a piece. So you'll have to redo that. I'm gonna hang this drive shaft from the bottom of the car so it doesn't get damaged. And we'll go ahead and we're gonna remove that drain plug to let air in and drain this transmission. That's the drain pan that we're gonna use. And we're gonna, underneath there, we have an oil absorbing mat that we put in. And so we're gonna drain the transmission now. So this is a brand new pan, so it'll be nice and dirty in a sec. And if you look underneath, that's the draining, the 2 holes, the air hole and also the bottom drain hole. So I'm gonna leave it draining on our catch pan and our oil absorbing mat. So we'll leave that for a couple hours and see what happens. This is the ZF lifeguard fluid, the transmission fluid recommended by BMW. It's really expensive. For 7 liters, it's roughly 200 USD. This is the side of the packaging, so you have an idea of what it is and what the specifications are. You'll need 7 liters. So that's the pan dropped. If you look up there, that's the exposed Mechatronic unit, which you'll remove to replace the 5 seals, especially the Mechatronic seal and the connector Mechatronic seal.
and the 4 valve seals for each of the solenoids. And that should restore all functionality to that transmission. This is the Mechatronic unit. As you can see right here is the hose from the filter from the pan up into the transmission. Those are the solenoids. The Mechatronic seals over here that I need to take out, and I'm going to remove this entire unit out of the transmission. This whole thing will drop, and to get to the 4 seals and the Mechatronic seal. Those are the ones that give you hard shifts. So anyway, I let this thing drain overnight so there's no more dripping, but it's quite a messy job. Obviously I have a catch pan here and then this oil absorbent mat, so I recommend you have something like that if you're going to try this job. It's actually complicated but not difficult. Here's the black sludge that came out of the vehicle, roughly 2 gallons worth. Oh. Anyway, we're going to continue on taking out the Mechatronic unit. It's like 16 bolts have to come out. So as you can see, this is what the Mechatronic unit looks like. You can see there's some of these screws here and here and here. There's like 3 more up here, and I think total it's like 10. Well, those all have to come out in order for us to drop the Mechatronic unit, which I'm going to do. This thing here releases the, by pulling it out, which we already have, it releases the Mechatronic seal. This thing here, which is plugged in above the unit, and we replaced it because of the O-rings. So let's get to it. There's the Mechatronic sealing sleeve, and you see it right there. Got to pull that plug out, and this white switch here releases it. And if we pull that out, then we'll take out the Mechatronic unit here. It's gonna be tight. I'm gonna get my hand up into that hole. And here, if you can see, we pulled the plug out. Now we're gonna get the sleeve out, which is back there. It's gonna be a little tough. Here are the 5 seals that we have to replace. These are the solenoid seals, and this is the Mechatronic unit. You'll see it in the transmission in a second. We'll go back under the car. If you're wondering, those seals, the 4 of them, the tubes are have metal in them. They're magnetic. It's the Mechatronic seal, the one in the middle that's not. See, we've dropped the Mechatronic unit, and that's actually the transmission itself. The Mechatronic unit is now sitting in that bin. What we're gonna have to replace is that Mechatronic seal, which gives you the hard shifts, and these 4 solenoid seals. If you notice in here, if you look through these holes, that's actually the transmission itself. This is actually the shift lever, so we'll have to make back up to the Mechatronic unit, and that's that seal that I'm having problems getting out. Like it can't fit through this hole, and that's the Mechatronic seal that always goes bad. If you can see it, that's that hole there, and that's where the wire that's over here comes in and then feeds the electronics, which are inside this unit right here, which is all the electronics, hence the Mechatronic, the electronic part of the mechanical part. So let's do it. I'm gonna pull these out with a pick and a pair of needle nose pliers, but it's really this thing here that you should change out. Alrighty. All right. You can see we added the new seals. You see they stick out roughly like a millimeter, so it gives a really good seal when the Mechatronic unit is compressed back against that piece of metal. And obviously this is brand new. We just replaced it. This is the problem. If this cracks, typically you'll have rough shifts. I noticed when I pulled mine out, this piece of plastic actually came off. So this was probably going to cause some problems. Now, interesting, because it's an XI, there's a drive shaft over here. Normally the shift linkage is on this side, and it controls this thing here. Notice that there's a piece of rod that goes through, and the shift linkage is on the other side. That's so that we can have a drive shaft. So these ZF transmissions, which are made by a company in Germany, used in BMWs, Mercedes, and some American cars, the transmission, it might be a ZF 619, which is what this one is, but they have slight changes in these specifications for obviously for a drive shaft there and moving linkages left and right. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna put the Mechatronic unit back in right now because we replaced the seals that we wanted to. If you do this in your car, you'll definitely notice a difference in shifting performance. Just changing the filter and the oil won't do really anything. This particular transmission actually has carbon fiber discs, so they're very, very durable. So you notice in the sludge from the transmission fluid, it was quite dark, and that's really just carbon particles. So this is actually still fairly good, this transmission. So get these changed, smooth shifts, and get this changed, smooth downshifts. That's the Mechatronic seal. This one always fails. All right, Mechatronic seal. If you notice here the smaller rectangle, you notice how that has, it's filled in. That one looks like it was kind of a divot. That's because a piece of plastic had fallen off on that. So let's take a look. It's this one right here. If you can see it. This had cracked right off, so that wouldn't have given us good downshifts because the seal is bad. So now it's fixed. Use the CompuTorque here, and then we're going to torque the Torque's 40 bolts. We're going to torque them all to 8 nanometers, and that should be fine because it's aluminum. It's very soft, so you got to be really careful. And this is using the torque wrench. To get 10 Newton meters. It's covered in ceramic because there's oil all over the place. I don't get it all over my expensive CompuTorque torque wrench, but it works really well. It's made by a company called CDI. It's a company that makes them for Snap-on tools.
This is the Mechatronic sleeve, where the 2 O-rings that seal the sleeve against the transmission. This is where the electronics enter through that plug into the actual Mechatronic unit inside the transmission. This is where the actual Mechatronic sleeve sits at the very top of the Mechatronic unit itself. It's very difficult to get out.
So live and learn. In the back of the transmission case, this is the bottom of the pan. I put it up so I don't get oil in my face. There's another drain hole up here, which doesn't require you to remove the drive shaft. So I replaced this one, put the drive shaft back, and we'll try to open up the hole up here for the fill. Gonna have to remove this because, as you see, the Mechatronic sleeve, which is right here, you can see it, doesn't come out. There's not enough room, so I have to remove this bracket. So we're gonna have to put a jack on the transfer case holding it up, and then remove this entire bracket here in order to get in here to remove this, give enough room for that Mechatronic sleeve to come out and us to put the new one in, and also to pop open the hole here and start the fill. Everything else is good to go. Our final step to get the sleeve, the Mechatronic sleeve, which fits up in here, out. It won't fit through this hole. We have to remove this entire bracket, which is why we have to have this jack on the transfer case. This particular bracket, which is blocking us from getting this in and out, supports the transfer case and the entire transmission, and then the engine back here. So we're going to remove that 6 bolts. I think they're 14 foot-pound for these 6 bolts, and then this one in here, which I think is a 55 foot-pound. But this one bolt, this rubber grommet, supports this entire transfer case, which is bolted to the transmission. So we can't get this out unless we take this out. So we're going to take it out. So hopefully you'll see that the 6 bolts are here. And so it's 6 on the other, 3 on the other side, 3 here, so 6 in total. And then that bolt in there, which goes to this rubber grommet. Now this rubber grommet here sometimes goes bad, and then you get vibration. So I'm going to have that replaced, but I'm going to remove this nonetheless so I can get the oil back in the transmission and then replace this part. All right, so stay tuned. And we're also going to use that impact wrench, one that we can fit underneath the car here. It's kind of cramped. Let's get to it. And as you can see, now we can move it just enough because we took all the bolts here and here, and we jacked it up, and then this sleeve, Mechatronic sleeve, fell out through the hole here. You'll have to do the same thing. It's really quite tight up there. But let's put the new one in. If you look up into the hole there, you see the plug. We're gonna have to force the sleeve into that plug. It's really quite tight. All right, so we're under the car again. That's the transmission mount. This is the fill plug. There's one that's right up here. We're gonna put our big pump and start uploading the lifeguard fluid. It's like for 7 bottles, it's roughly like $180. It's really expensive stuff. But it's made by ZF, the company that made the transmission. So yeah, pulled the plug out. It's an 8mm hex socket, and it's really tight in there. So we gotta crack it out with a cheater bar. So we have our oil absorbent cloth and a catch can. So let's start pumping the oil in. So that's the lifeguard fluid. We're gonna put it into this transmission pump, and then I'm gonna bring it underneath the car there and pump it into the transmission. We're gonna have to wait
to warm the car up. So we're gonna put in a couple bottles and then warm the car up to about 40 Celsius. We'll use the INPA software to read it from the sensors directly from the car. And then we'll use that to pump the rest of the fluid in. And then we're done. Let's get underneath the car. Squirt some more oil in. So, I have the Wally mic on, so you can probably hear me very well. So, here's our pump. Glistening with very expensive oil. I'm gonna put this in here. It's really kind of tricky. So, there are better pumps than this. Better ones have a longer tube, and you pump the oil directly out of the canisters, which means I don't have to get into the car. So here, we have to get into the car. So when the car is running and we're getting our last squirts of the oil in, it's gonna be kind of dangerous. So we'll see what happens, all right? So we're pumping away here. Put a liter of oil into the transmission pan. When the oil starts to leak out, as we have the catch can there, then we'll know we'll have to heat the engine up to do the rest. Okay. We might be able to make this hose longer and solve our problem. I could probably do that. So as you can see, now I have to just assemble it, get new oil, and come back in. So let's do that. Yeah, since we have to have the car running so that the transmission fluid gets about 40 Celsius, I don't want to be underneath the car. So I bought a longer piece of vinyl tubing and replaced that on the pump so that I don't have to be under the car. I can pump it from outside the car. So I had to put a pipe clamp here, and here we used an Oederker step ear clamp because I have a bunch of these. These are what's OEM on a BMW. So I have a tool here. It's the Oederker stepless ear clamp kit, and that's actually a Knipex a tool, the clamp anyway. So Oederker, I guess, puts this package together, but that's actually a Knipex tool, which is that German company that makes fantastic hand tools. They're super expensive. Anyway, these are what OEM connectors on BMWs use. So if I replace any clamps actually in the BMW, I would use these. So I just use them to extend the pipe for the pump. So we're gonna put some more transmission fluid in. We're gonna warm the engine up to 40 Celsius, and let's see what happens. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Our garage isn't quite level, so our quick jack, which is unfortunately level, it's a parallelogram. We put a piece of wood here. We used the higher plastic block than the front. So I don't know if you noticed, but it's actually on an angle from the back being higher than the front. This will cause the transmission fluid to flow forward into the vehicle so we can put more in. If it's not level, you're not gonna get the 7 liters you need in, and then your transmission is gonna essentially self-destruct. So this is how we solved that problem. We needed to get it onto the quick check so we can get underneath the car and undo the fill bolt. So anyway, let's get to it. As you can see, that's the pump. We just put the fluid in. You can see where the pipe goes, where the transmission drill fill hole is. We have a can to catch any kind of dribble. They want to start the car and keep pumping fluid in. I don't want to get underneath the car, which is why we extended the cable, as you can see here, or the tube. Yeah, I really don't want to get under the car when it's running. It's not, to me, it's too dangerous. And that's our laptop that's set up with its onboard diagnostic cable plugged in. We're going to be running INPA in a second, and that will then show us the temperature of the fluid as we run the car. So we're going to use its own sensors to tell us how much we need to fill and cause the expansion of the transmission fluid. Cool. All right, as you can see, the car is running. We still have our fill tube underneath there. We have 2 more liters of oil through the onboard diagnostic port. Oh, we're running it through our remote ignition system, so we don't have to be in the car. Our wire to our INPA software. And if we look at the INPA software right here for the gearbox temperature, it's now 22 Celsius. It has to be between 30 and 50 Celsius, so roughly 40 would be fine. So we're still waiting for it to catch up. But yeah, so in order to do this job, you need to have the INPA software or Insta, the BMW software. So I basically have a laptop specifically for this work here in the garage. Cool. All right, so I hit the car continuously running. I went and worked the gears all through reverse, park, neutral, and then plus 1 through 6. By doing that, it causes the oil to flow into all the different solenoids, which basically were drained of oil when we drained the transmission. So if we look back at INPA, we're at 34 Celsius for the gearbox temperature. So we're actually right in the sweet zone. Between 30 and 50 is when the fluid is fully expanded. So we're going to continue to pump more fluid in. We've got 1 more liter. And once that's in, we're going to go crawl underneath the car and turn the drain plug off. And then we're good to go. That's it. That's how you change the transmission oil, transmission pan, the Mechatronic unit, Mechatronic sleeve, and the 2 sealing sleeves, or 4 sealing sleeves for the different solenoids. Yeah, it's a bit of work, and you're going to need a car lift, but it's quite fun. So yeah, it's computer, it's hardware, it's vehicle, and it's mechanics. Nice afternoon, eh? It's now 39 Celsius, so it's right in the sweet spot. So we pumped the last of our oil in. So we've taken into account the expansion. The car is up to temperature. And you can see our goal is to not have a dribble of transmission fluid coming out of that pan. I know exactly that I poured out 7 liters of the lifeguard fluid, which I got 7 liters. So what I've done is, as you notice the car, it's tilted forward. So therefore, I should be able to put all 7 in without it dripping out. Normally what would happen is, if the car was absolutely level, you'd see a small stream streaming out of that hole, dropping in that pan, then you know it's full. But since I pushed it forward, I know it's 7 liters, I literally pumped in 7 liters. So I did some more, more specific than just trying to eyeball it with a level. So anyway, I think we're done. So unplug the laptop and take it for a test spin. Right, it's all done. Look down here. We've replaced the entire pan. And so everything's good to go. Go drop the car and go for a test drive. Use the device. Well, it's caught on the safety rigger there, so we'll have to undo that, but there you go. That's how That's the actual motor down there. All right, and that's it. Car is dropped.